Like, I have better taste than all your faves. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be trying out the new Canmake Silky Souffle Eyes eyeshadow quad in 09 Urban Khaki. I included this item in my last Japanese drugstore cosmetics haul video, and I know that some of you have been asking for a review specifically dedicated to this palette, so I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Today I'm going to be using this palette in conjunction with their new creamy touch liner in matcha khaki, so hopefully we'll be able to turn out a really cute, you know, Japanese sweets matcha themed type of look today. This will be my second rodeo with the Silky Souffle Eyes formula from Canmake. I did do a review on Silky Souffle Eyes when it first came out. I think it was either the first or second palette. Wasn't completely impressed with the formula. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Canmake eyeshadows in general, to be quite honest with you, but yeah, it definitely fell a little short of my expectations the first time around. I don't think I considered it a complete fail, but it was definitely underwhelming enough to the point where I didn't touch anything else that they released from this line until now, because the color story for this palette in particular, 09, I just find to be really different and more exciting than the other color stories that they have available, which is mostly just the typical browns, pinks, and mauves. I, for one, am really happy to see more Japanese drugstore brands lately. I don't know if it's because of the season or what, but I've seen a lot of brands lately embrace more of this type of like citrusy green and yellows in their new releases. Now, the downside to that is that a lot of these more colorful, fun, citrusy color palettes, you know how Japanese brands like to play us with anything outside of the norm. They'll release it in limited quantities or for a limited time only. That's just the name of the game here in Japan. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get into the application. So as always, on the back of Canmake eyeshadow palettes, as well as many other palettes from other Japanese drugstore brands, they give you a little instructional diagram on the back as sort of a guide. Sometimes I follow the diagram suggestions and sometimes I don't, but I feel like this time around for this color story in particular, I don't think that their suggestion would work the best on my eye shape. Like, for example, they suggest that you put the golden yellow color here on the inner half of the lid, and I find that whenever it's a really light color like a yellow or a light pink, it just doesn't create the shape that I personally like, where I like to have more depth on both the inner and outer corners of my eyes. So yeah, I'm gonna disregard that little suggestion that they have on the back here, and I'm just gonna do my own color combination or pattern, I guess you could say. So as always, I'm gonna start off with ABH eye primer. I'm gonna start off by sweeping this mushroomy metallic color A in the top left corner here all over my lids. The finish for all of these shadows is pretty much the same, by the way. I think these two, like the yellow gold and the copper down here, are maybe slightly more reflective, but overall it is kind of within the same soft metallic family. Okay, so that applied on super smoothly. Almost no blending or adjusting on my part was necessary. As you can see, I applied it very liberally over the entire top half of my lid, practically touching my eyebrows. I feel like you can get away with more of those bold, sweeping color placements with a palette like this because it's a more of a muted finish in general. So that's actually something that I'm really appreciating already, because it just takes some of the pressure off of me. I don't know about you, maybe it's just because I review a lot of makeup on YouTube. Some makeup formulas, it's like, you know, as much as I love it, they be low-key stressing me out, if you know what I'm saying. Anything that makes the process easier. So next I'm gonna go in with this green, and I'm going to work it kind of high up in the inner corner. So this is gonna be the main star of the show, and then we'll put some of the yellow and copper shades onto the middle as well as the inner corner to add that highlight and three-dimensionality. And then maybe I'll take the yellow and sweep it along my lower lash line as well. Let me go ahead and do it, and I'll stop talking as much. Ooh, I like that already. I really like this green against my skin tone. Okay, so I think that yellow looks really nice against the green like in the center here. It's a little bit too subtle for my taste though, so I'm gonna go in with actually just a little more of this mushroom shade on top here, and I'm gonna do like a really thin line in the middle just to give the illusion of even more light bouncing off of the center. And then we can even just go in with an additional layer of the yellow on top so that we don't lose the juicy citrusy tones. Put some down here too. Then I'm gonna take a smaller detail brush and just create a V shape on the outer edge of my eyes. Okay, I don't know if you can see from this distance, but there's a ton of fallout on my cheeks. Yeah, see, even after I sweep it away, it still is like very glittery down here. That's probably the biggest con of this formula. It's very like loose and prone to fallout. Okay, so now I'm ready to add the Creamy Touch liner in Matcha Khaki, which I think is actually very needed in this look. I don't feel like the copper color down here really did much for me in terms of that outer corner definition that I was hoping to achieve. So this liner is razor thin. It has 1.5 millimeters diameter, which makes it perfect for us hooded-eyed girls to really get into those crevices. And I'm just gonna use this to create that dark outer V shape, bringing it in like 1/3 of the way onto the lower lash line. You have to be careful when you're handling this component because it's the type that doesn't go back in once you twist it out. So you don't want to twist out too much, especially since it's so thin, and it's a really soft creamy formula as well. Although I do have to say it is a little bit difficult to apply it over eyeshadow. It glides on much more easily and without any tugging onto bare skin, but I find that right now, since I have so many layers of eyeshadow on already, I'm having to apply a little more pressure, a little more tugging than I would like. Whew, okay, we did it. I think it does look really nice, but I was cringing a little bit, not gonna lie, with the amount of pressure that I had to apply. I'm just gonna go over the edges with some more of the green shade to eliminate any harsh lines. Okay, I tried my best to sort of diffuse everything out, especially on the edges here, but this cream gel liner is actually very budge proof, so it was really difficult for me to create that seamless blend. It still turned out looking decent though. It's not perfect, but at least it's not that like harsh straight edge type of line. So I'm gonna go off camera and put on my eyelashes and mascara and stuff on, and I'll be right back to share with you my final thoughts. Okay, so here is the finished look. I actually have a full face of Canmake on today, so both the blush and the lipstick that I'm wearing are also by Canmake. This one is their cream blush in P03, and this one is their Melty Luminous Rouge in T05. I think it contrasts really well with the khaki green on my eyes. Final thoughts about the Urban Khaki Silky Souffle Eyes palette from Canmake. As I predicted, I did have a better first impressions experience with this palette when compared with the first Silky Souffle Eyes palette that I tried out. I do think that most of that simply comes down to the color story. Like, I personally really enjoy and vibe with this citrusy green lemony type of color variation. Formula wise though, I do have to say that I don't think it's all that much different from when I first tried out the Silky Souffle Eyes. So basically, like, I think the formula has been consistent throughout every single release that they've come out with for this line. I guess you could say that's a positive thing in a way. You know, there are people out there that really swear by this formula. I would not go as far as some people to say that this is department level quality or something. I think that's going a little bit too far because there are YouTubers out there claiming that. Okay, so I'll start with the pros first. I think that this is a very beginner friendly formula first and foremost. The colors in this palette in particular, they're like bright and fun, but it's not bold enough to the point where it would intimidate a beginner or somebody that's like not used to wearing so much color on their lids. It is virtually impossible to mess anything up in your application with this formula just because it is so sheer and blendable. It practically blends itself out. Like I didn't find myself having to work really hard at diffusing any harsh lines. You could say that it's even a little too blendable to the point where you actually have to be careful not to overblend. Because the powder is so soft and sheer, it is very easy to end up with like one muddy color even though your intention was to put on 3 different colors. I found myself constantly having to go back in and reapply more layers, especially with this yellow shade up here for the center. Yeah, like this yellow in particular, maybe just because it's a lighter shade, I found myself having to go back in several times and keep applying more layers because it would kind of disappear or just like get lost when I was trying to add darker greens and stuff to the other parts of my eye. Although that was a little bit annoying and time consuming, it never led to like an unfixable moment in the eyeshadow application process, if that makes sense. So I do think that that is a very positive thing. It takes away that stress that I feel sometimes with maybe clingier or harder to blend formulas where it feels like, oh my god, I only have this one chance to get it right or else I'll have to erase the whole thing and start over again.
You only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
I call these Monet eyeshadows, where it's like you can expect the final look to be a really watercolor-esque type of effect. This is not the type of eyeshadow that you're going to go to achieve that really graphic, bold, Western style eyeshadow makeup look. But if you want something that's really like soft and blown out, and if you're willing to put up with some of the frustrations that come with that, such as, you know, certain colors blending maybe a little too well into other colors to the point where you kind of have to go back and forth and keep adding and blending out until you get the desired intensity and gradient. If you can just be patient with that process until you achieve your desired look, I think you'll be a satisfied customer. So the most elevated version of the Monet eyeshadows I think would definitely be Shu Uemura's formula. Not me comparing Canmake to Shu Uemura. Oh no, what has the world come to? No, I'm not saying that these are on the level of a Shu Uemura in any capacity, but it is kind of in the same family. I have to hand it to them. It's kind of like a watered down Shu Uemura eyeshadow. Can't believe I even said that, but it is what it is. So the cons, as you saw during application, there was way too much kick up and fallout. That was pretty annoying. I ended up just wiping off this area with a makeup wipe and reapplying some foundation. It was just too much glitter fallen on the rest of my face. And then just shade wise too, like it is a little bit still too much on the sheer side for my liking. I was expecting more pigmentation than some of the other color variations in this line just because it's like a khaki green. So I was expecting a little more depth in that respect. Luckily, I think it did turn out really nice against my skin tone. You can actually see the green and the yellow on my lids even though it is pretty faint. But you know, even on me, I still had to rely on the cream gel liner at the end of the day to create that extra dimension at the outer edges of my eyes. So I feel like if you're even 2 shades darker than me, maybe this won't show up that well on your skin, which is a shame because even though this is a Japanese brand that is aimed at the Japanese or Asian market, there's still plenty of Asian people out there that have deeper skin tones than me. What about their needs, you know? I would love to see someone actually with a slightly deeper skin tone than me, maybe like a Southeast Asian tanner type of Asian skin, try out this palette and just to see if how it shows up against their skin, if it shows up at all. But yeah, at the end of the day, I guess like me personally, I don't have too many complaints about this palette. I do really like the whole matcha color theme, and I do think that this is actually a very, very fairly priced item. It's only 880 yen inclusive of tax. There are some drugstore single eyeshadows that cost more than that, so I think the fact that you're getting an entire quad for just 880 yen, that's only 220 yen per shadow, it is actually a really, really good deal. Rimmel Japan's single eyeshadows go for 1,000 yen for a single shadow. Like, it's Rimmel. It's still squarely a drugstore brand. There's no reason for their singles to cost that much. So yeah, as far as pricing goes, I do have to say that the Silky Souffle Eyes line is very, very fairly priced. Okay, so before I close out this video, I thought it would be kind of fun actually to give you guys some of my recommendations of my favorite matcha flavored snacks. if you live in Japan or if you ever visit Japan, these are my top recommendations. It's not every day that I get to do a matcha themed eyeshadow look, so I figured why not seize the opportunity. It's up to you. I mean, you can leave the video now if you wanted to, but personally, I don't think that would be such a good idea. I think you're gonna want to hear these suggestions because, like, I have better taste than all your faves, you know, not to brag or anything, but yeah, in every area of life, I can pretty much guarantee that I have better taste. And I say this with a lot of confidence because, as you guys know, or maybe some of you newcomers, you're not aware, but I am a snake in Chinese zodiac, and we are pretty much renowned for our good taste and everything. Like, we're basically born out the womb being able to tell like what products, whether it be clothing, food, whatever, we are able to tell which ones are the higher quality and more refined versions versus the mass-produced ones for the proletariat, shall we say. So when it comes to matcha flavored snacks and drinks and stuff like that, the one big criteria that I needed to meet in order for me to think that something actually tastes good or delicious, it cannot have that weird tinny metallic aftertaste that a lot of lower quality matcha snacks have. I don't really know how to describe it. It's just this kind of gross metallic aftertaste that lingers in your mouth. The same thing goes with chocolate and coffee. I really cannot stand coffee and chocolate products that have this sour, rancid almost aftertaste, which is usually characteristic of the cheaper brands or manufacturers, unfortunately, but also not surprisingly. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people know what I'm talking about. Actually, comment below if you agree with me. With that being said though, these are some of my recommendations for matcha flavored snacks that you can buy in Japan. It's not going to break the bank, but rest assured it's not going to give you that icky tinny aftertaste that us bougie babes just don't like to deal with, okay? So in no particular order, number one would be, so matcha flavored chocolate covered almonds by the brand Meiji. I actually avoided this snack for a long time. Like, I would always see it in the convenience store. I've been in Japan for over 10 years, right? These are everywhere, in the convenience store, in the drugstore, in the supermarket. Meiji is a huge chocolate snack manufacturer here. I would often see their chocolate covered almond snacks, and I would just assume I don't think it's like the cheapest chocolate manufacturer. There are other chocolate brands that are like even lower grade, so I would say Meiji is about mid-range, but just by virtue of them being available everywhere, like in regular supermarkets and stuff, I unfairly wrote them off as, oh, they must have that weird aftertaste that I don't like. Boy, was I wrong though. The first time that I tried their matcha chocolate flavored almonds, totally smooth, not too sweet, not too mild matcha taste, no aftertaste whatsoever. If you are a fan of chocolate covered almonds and you also like matcha, I highly recommend this snack. Next item is actually a drink, or it's a series of drinks from the chain restaurant Nana's Green Tea here in Tokyo. Again, I would characterize Nana's as maybe more of a mid-range style cafe. It's not super expensive, it's not going to break your bank, but it is a little bit higher quality or a higher image in general as opposed to a Detour coffee shop, for example. And the fact that it is kind of a matcha drink specialty shop, so naturally you can expect their drinks to be higher quality and richer in terms of just like both the grade and the amount of matcha that they use in their drinks, hence the name itself, Nana's Green Tea. Yeah, I would definitely recommend to go to Nana's Green Tea if you're ever experiencing a craving for any type of true authentic matcha green tea type of drink. They have a lot of options too. You can get like the regular matcha tea with a water base, or you can get the their most popular menu item, which I also like to order every time I go there, which is the matcha latte or matcha iced latte drink. That's really good as well. You can get that with whipped cream or a scoop of ice cream. There's a bunch of different options on the menu for you, whatever floats your boat. I would definitely recommend Nana's Green Tea over the matcha drinks that are available in other cafe chains such as Detour and even Starbucks. I personally am not a fan of the matcha Starbucks drink here in Japan. It doesn't have a gross aftertaste, I will give it that, but it is definitely too watered down in my opinion. Once in a while I will just get it out of like desperation and necessity. There's a Starbucks on every corner, so it's always available to me, as opposed to Nana's Green Tea, which has far less locations. But yeah, on the few occasions that I have resorted to ordering Starbucks matcha latte drink, I have always been a little bit disappointed. It's like too much of the milk ratio and not enough of the matcha drink ratio. Okay, the next item I have on my list, possibly the most affordable of them all, matcha Kit Kats. There's two different types of matcha Kit Kats that are available actually. There's a dark green and a light green one. The dark green one, I think it's called like Otona Aji for adults. So it's a more potent, like stronger flavor of the matcha in that one. I guess you could say more bitter, whereas the light green one, I personally am not a fan of it because I think it's too much on the sweet side. Although if that is your thing, if you like really sweet chocolate, or if you want to enjoy it with coffee or a straight tea, you know, something bitter, I guess you could offset it that way. But personally, out of the two, I would definitely say go for the dark green one over the light green. Haagen-Dazs matcha flavored ice cream is another snack that you cannot go wrong with, whether it be the classic ice cream in a tub or in Japan. And I think this is only available in Japan, or it's only produced by the Japan division of Haagen-Dazs, but we have these special Haagen-Dazs ice cream sandwiches that come out in limited flavors depending on the seasons. So I don't know if the matcha one is available year-round, but during certain times of the year they will come out with the matcha flavored Haagen-Dazs crispy sandwich. It's like a ice cream sandwich basically with two crunchy like wafer sheets, and then there's the ice cream in between the two wafers with a thin chocolate coating. So the matcha version of that I would highly recommend. It has a very like rich, satisfying taste. Not only the taste, but the blend of all the different textures with the wafer and the chocolate and the ice cream. And the bitterness and sweetness ratio is also just right in that ice cream sandwich. So my last recommendation is a matcha cake. I'm just gonna speak for myself personally. I know that some of you might think that I'm bougie and extra for saying this, but when it comes to cakes or cake-like desserts, I personally would just opt to skip out on anything and everything that is offered at the supermarket or the convenience store. They always have some variation of a matcha konbini cake or the roll cake thing, which is a popular dessert as well. You know, it's like a cake and then cream or custard filling. They alternate in a spiral. I am sure that this description is not helping at all. But yeah, there's the matcha version of that, which I personally don't think is all that impressive if you are talking about anything from a konbini. Same goes for donuts. Unless it's Krispy Kreme, I do not deal with matcha flavored donuts. If you find yourself really craving any type of matcha flavored cake, I'm sorry, again, this is just my opinion, but you're gonna have to go to Sadaharu Aoki Patisserie. Yes, that Sadaharu Aoki, the one that did that collaboration with Shimamura not too long ago, the fancy one that started out in France. That is the only place that I personally would go for actual matcha flavored cake. If it's not Sadaharu Aoki or higher in bouginess, I don't want it, okay? I can remember one time when I was headed home from work and I just was hit with this inexplicable craving for matcha flavored cake, so I took myself to the Sadaharu Aoki counter in Isetan department store and I bought myself this tiny little rectangular single serve portion of a Sadaharu Aoki matcha cake. They had a little matcha flavored macaron on top as well. It was like 1,200 yen or something crazy for this tiny little rectangular piece of cake. Let me tell you something. I would rather spend 1,200 yen on a Sadaharu Aoki properly made matcha cake with proper like high grade ingredients than 200 yen matcha flavored cakes from the convenience store that is like gross, tinny, something is just off about it. I don't want it, okay? Okay, so that is the end of this video. Leave a green tea emoji if you're still watching at this point. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!